Hey there, funnel builders. Mike here from Sell Your Service, and today I want to talk to you about how do you know if traffic levels or email subscriber levels or follower levels or anything is going well. How can you measure your growth properly? How can you see what's a good baseline? Now for me, I have a magic number of 8%. So why 8%? All I want is my traffic, my email, my subscribers, everything to just grow by 8% month on month. Now that's net growth. So I'm going to go into a lot of this. I think a lot of the time we're constantly taught about, hey, here's how we can get 1,000 email subscribers on our list. Now I've just broken, I think, as of recording, 1,100 active newsletter subscribers. We've actually got quite a few more across various lists, but what with GDPR and opt-in rules and unsubscribes, got 1,100 active people on our email list. And according to Orrerbee, which is our analytics platform, in fact I can show you that here, in June we had 3,130 unique visitors this month. First of all, how do I know if that's any good? All right, how do I know if I'm growing at a decent rate? How do I know that in comparison to every other month that I've been going up, but at a decent, a decent volume? There's a big difference between net growth and gross growth. So a very high level, let's say I add 1,000 email subscribers a month, just as a nice round number, 1,000 email subscribers a month. Everyone would be going, my God, that's amazing, 1,000 email subscribers a month. But that would be gross growth because that encompasses everything. If I have 999 people unsubscribe every month, I'm actually growing just by one net subscriber a month. Now, to me, I only want to know about my net subscriber growth. I'm actually not that interested in people who visit or people who subscribe or people who follow me who are counterbalanced by other people unsubscribing. It's a big misconception to say, well, I've got, 10,000 people on my email list. The latest GDPR thing where people were having people unsubscribe and shit, which personally I don't think you didn't need to do, but that's beside the point. I know a lot of businesses who went from kind of 25,000 people down to 4,000. Now I know for a fact that I've had less than 1,000 people on my email subscriber list for a long time, and they've been extremely active, and we roughly generate between $7 to $9 per subscriber per month based on a lower number. And if anything, I'm noticing now that my email subscribers are growing, that number of generated income per subscriber is actually dropping. So I want to work on that. But how do I know whether my email list growth or my subscriber growth or my traffic and visitor count or YouTube follower growth, for example, is doing well? And my magic number is 8%. My magic number of 8% is because if I had £1.25 million in the bank, and I invested it across, a few stocks and shares and mutual funds. I didn't just have it sitting in a bank or an ISA or I'm afraid I don't know what they call them in the States. It's basically, a savings account, but they have such a low yield. I mean, it's like 0.4%. The interest rates are crazy low, and they're like, well, at the moment we've got a 1% interest rate on our account. I'm like, yeah, that's nothing. Like, if not even including inflation, your money's being eaten into. So let's say that I had 1.25 million and I was able to grow that 8% year on year. That 8% would generate roughly $100,000. Now, £100,000. So I could live off £100,000 quite comfortably every single year with 1.25 million in the bank. Now, there's a lot of other components to that. I personally believe you need to have 10 million in the bank across, in almost liquid assets before you're considered safe. But that's another conversation for another time. But that's why I believe 8% is a really good number to shoot for. And I want to show you some examples. So this is Orrerbee here, like I've shown you before. I love this as an analytics platform. Very, very useful. But if I go, for example, in July, as of recording this, I've got 1,600 visitors this month. Obviously, we're only on July the 15th. So we're kind of halfway through the month. And if I go back to June, I can kind of think, okay, well, 3,130, that's great. How many did I have in May? 3,094. Okay, so I haven't had that many more people visit in June. What about March? 2,699, great. But it's very difficult when you see these numbers side by side It's actually kind of what the media does. They'll just put a random number, what they call an isolated statistic, an isolated number just right in front of you, and you kind of think, okay, well, is that any good? Which is why, and I know that Google Analytics can do this, but this is why I do it like this. I have my own little traffic report, and I write out my traffic report every month for my blog. And I can see here that since November, when I've been measuring, actually I've been measuring slightly before that because I had the previous months. We had 1,500, and then it dropped, and then it went 2,000, it dropped again, then it went up, and then it dropped slightly. By plotting this on a graph, I also have what I call my baseline growth of 8% month over month. So this is starting with the same number of same number of visitors, 1,528, 1,528 at 8% growth. So just if I added 8% more visitors per month, did a little bit more work, continued writing content, continued promoting, continued with our remarketing campaigns and our cold traffic campaigns, I would then have 1,650. And then 8% on that would be 1,782. What I want to do is measure, am I above that 8% rate? And you can see here that a couple of times I've actually dropped below that 8% rate. So assuming again a start of roughly 1,500 visitors per month, at 8% it grows obviously a fairly steady rate here in the red line here. Whereas in blue I've got my actual visitors, and you can see the first month we actually dropped, the second month we went up again, the third month we dropped again, and now we've spiked and we're continually growing. Now this here, this gap seems to be narrowing. I can't tell, I don't have enough data at the moment, but I want to know, am I growing at least 8%. If I was genuinely just growing at 8%, I'd be stoked with that. The reason why I'd be so happy is because, one, it's predictable growth, but also I try to use 8% because a lot of people use 10%. And I think 10% encompasses that metric that I talked about earlier, that number of gross growth. People say, well, if I have 1,000 subscribers, I want 1,100 next month. And to me, I'd rather have 8% net growth. So this includes people who drop off. Now, for visitors, it's slightly harder to measure because this is just overall. And I believe this is unique visitors again, so I want to make sure it encompasses unique visitors. To me, the difference between 8% and 10% is a bit of a margin. I also like the idea that if I continually work around the 8% model and I allow myself an 8% return on all of my other investments, like all my stocks and shares and stuff, where I put money and I save money, that yields roughly 8% as well. I try to give myself an 8% yield on things like property, which is very, it's difficult to predict, but that's the thing I want to go for. That seems to be a fairly standard industry number. Email subscribers is very interesting as well, because again, in November we had just 517 subscribers, but I was already pretty profitable by that point because they're a very engaged group of subscribers. Many of you guys will be on that list, and you can see here that this 8% number, if I just stretch this out slightly, that red line of continual growth like that, the blue line above it shows that bit by bit, and it was only this month that we just broke 1,003 active subscribers, because this takes into account people who unsubscribe as well. Amazingly, a lot of people who teach you how to build your email list do not take into consideration email unsubscribes. They don't take that into consideration at all. This to me is net growth. So this is 1,000 active engaged users, and even if I was growing at 8%, you can see here that I'm predicted to have broken that by August anyway. Even if I just grow at 8% from that same number, that same starting number of 517, I would want to start with, I would have broken 1,000, which seems to be a magical number for a lot of people. The reason it's a magic number is because 8% of 1,000 is obviously a lot more than 8% of 100. It's a lot more than 8% of it's a lot more than 8% of 500, and there's a compound effect that comes into effect when you continually grow, because eventually your growth in 1 month will be more than your total subscribers of previous months, and you end up kind of adding more in 1 month just through 8% than you would have previously done, even if you had doubled 500. So there's a lot of interesting things happen when you start breaking around that 1,000 barrier mark. If I was to come here, what I can do is show you, if we start with month 1 and then month 2, let's say today you had 0 email subscribers, and we'll come down here and I'm going to drag this all the way down. There's a few years here, and you start with 1 subscriber today, and then we look at a growth of 8%. So equals sell above times 1.08. Now the next month you would still have 1. Now let's see what happens. By the time we're on, and remember this is very, very, very conservative. For the first 6 months, you have 1 subscriber. For the next 6 months, you have 2 subscribers. For the next 6 months, you have 3 subscribers. And then the distance starts getting smaller. Then for 3 months, you have 4 subscribers. And then for 3 months, you have 5 subscribers. Then 2 months, you have 7 subscribers. Then 2 months, you have 7 subscribers. And then around month 28, month 29, you start increasing every single month. It's not until it looks like kind of month 30 where things really begin to pick up, what we call this inflection point, where things begin to pick up and scale exponentially. Now the reality is you can actually scale that number, this initial subscriber number, much faster than you might think. A lot of that is to do with, you know, creating remarketing campaigns and really going heavy on like email subscriber campaigns and your opt-ins and stuff. So you're not going to just have this, but this is the kind of numbers that you're working against. And if you could even think, well, actually, I reckon I could start with 100 subscribers. By month 2, you're 108, but you can see the inflection point is still the same. This is why it's so interesting. The inflection point is still the same. Even if I started with 1,000, the inflection point is still the same. It's not until around month 30 that things really begin picking up. And this is a very well-known phenomenon, particularly in things like stocks and shares and investing, where the more you zoom out, the larger that curve seems to, the more this curve seems to get. So starting with 1,000 subscribers now in month 1, in 2 years time, in a year's time, I'll have 2,330 subscribers. That's if I follow this 8% rule, okay? And then by the second year, I'll have 5,000 subscribers. So I've actually added more subscribers. I've doubled the number of subscribers that I have. It's a very, very interesting phenomenon. It's something to me that's always struck me as very interesting, is this exponential growth. And this is the only number that you need to worry about when it comes to your email subscribers. We'll have one final look at my YouTube followers as well. Here we go. So these in total, this is the last 365 days. You can see that I've added 486 subscribers to my channel. Now again, to a lot of email subscriber channels, that's nothing. And yet when I look at the guys with 2,000 subscribers, I think, oh my God, they've really broken it. Now, a lot of guys have said this, a lot of big email subscribers with 2 million and 10 million followers, they've said that their first 1,000 was harder than their first 100, their first 2,000 was harder than their first 1,000, their first 5,000 was harder than their first 2,000. It actually, each number seemed to get easier. It was this initial traction. And if we come back to that inflection point, you can see you put in the same amount of effort, but it's not until around here that it actually starts making any difference. So you put in 100%, you get nothing. 100%, you get nothing. 100%, you get nothing. Around here, you're putting in 100% and it's growing faster. 100%, you actually get more. 100%, you get more. The idea is that your previous month will always be your best month, and it's the same for any kind of growth. So I implore you to go and look for that 8% rule. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I am Mike from sellyourservice.co.uk. In the description box below, I've got some training on how to discover a niche for your marketing funnel business if you're interested in that. Let me know in the comments if you measure your analytics or growth through a different number, or if 8% seems to be a fairly reasonable number for you. Let me know what you've grown from last year as well to where you are now in terms of your email subscribers and the amount of traffic that you're driving to your website. I've got a couple of videos either side here. Probably in the meantime, guys, I will let you get on. Thank you very much for watching. Keep building those funnels.